Good morning, Story. My name is Joseph. I'm the pastor here. If this is your first time joining us, welcome home. Thank you so much for joining us today. Worry and anxiety is a part of the human experience. It is something that every person in this room has had to navigate in different ways in different parts of our lives. And I think it's an interesting exercise to go back and think about the different times in your life, the things that you used to worry about maybe in previous seasons of your life or even when you were younger. I continually will do this exercise and think back to what I used to worry about. See, when I was younger, I used to be incredibly worried that I was going to be picked last for teams at PE. And I convinced myself that if I was ever the last one standing to get picked, that it would be the end of my world and that it would be the end of my athletic career, that I would never make the major leagues. Young me had some high aspirations. I also was incredibly worried every time a teacher would come in the room and she would say, "Today we're going to popcorn read," because I knew I was going to have to read out loud in front of my classmates, and just the pressure of that. I remember I was being so scared and terrified. There's plenty of things I used to worry about. I used to be incredibly worried about falling into quicksand. The world led me to believe that I was going to play a much larger role in my life, and I haven't really encountered any as an adult. I used to be worried about plenty of things like ridiculous, the Bermuda Triangle and piranhas. I used to be afraid of going to the doctor and getting shots. Maybe some of you are still in that place. But when I think about those things and I laugh at myself, I also realize that even though I grew up, I never grew out of worrying. I don't worry about those things anymore, but I really just began to worry about different things. Different things began to cloud my mind and my heart. And I've learned for me and maybe for you as an adult that so much of my worry comes in moments where I don't have all of the information. When there's a disconnect between what I'm expecting to happen and where I currently am. What someone is displaying or saying and what I know about them or our interactions. When there's a disconnect and a gap there, I've learned about myself and maybe for you that is a place where worry grows for me and in my heart. Maybe you as well, when your boss sends you a message and they say, "Will you come by my office today so that we can have a talk?" You have no idea what it is they're asking. You don't know what it is they want to talk about, but many of us, we just begin in that place of not knowing. Our worry grows. Guess I'm getting fired today. Let me start looking for another job. Let me start packing my things, and our minds run off to places that aren't true. Maybe it's the doctor wants to run a test and you've never heard of this test before. You have no idea what it means or what it's about, but in that divide, in that gap, your worry begins to grow. You go home and you start Googling things that you never should have read on your own, and suddenly you're in a place that isn't quite true. This morning, I hear that the lights in the hallway aren't working, and I think, I guess we're not having church today. And I'm just off to the races. For me, I've learned that in those places of not having all of the information, of not quite understanding everything, that worry grows for me and maybe for you as well. And I want you to know that worry is a part of the human experience. It's something that every one of us deals with in different ways. And it's a reason why Jesus spoke so much about worry and to worry. And today, as we finish our message series, I want us to see a moment where Jesus is going to interact with some people who are dealing with worry. In the series, we've looked at when Jesus met real people, these people that he encountered dealing with all sorts of things, insecurity, anxiety, anger, feeling insignificant, all of these different emotions that we've been able to relate to. Today, I want us to see when Jesus met some people dealing with some very real worry. And of all the people Jesus has encountered that we've looked at, today the people we're going to see that are dealing with worry are actually the people who are closest to Jesus. Those who have been walking with him the longest. And so today we're going to look at them together. All around the world today, churches are celebrating Palm Sunday. It's a day where we celebrate, remember the day where Jesus came into the holy city, Jerusalem, at the beginning of the last week of his life, before he would be crucified, killed, and eventually come back to life. And the celebration is really a remembrance of this moment. Jesus is coming into the epicenter of the world, really, this city. And as he is, it's essentially a parade. There are people who are waving palm branches. There are people who are shouting out things to him. And essentially, it's a procession for a king, welcoming him into the city. And as you can imagine, it's meant to be a display of authority and force and power. Here comes our king. And yet, in this moment that we celebrate as the church around the world, when Jesus comes into the city, really in his final week of his life, he's riding a donkey. And it doesn't quite make sense. It's not what you would have picked if you were trying to show authority and power and force. And those closest to Jesus were also confused. Look at what this says in John chapter 12, verse 16. It says, at first, his disciples did not understand all of this. They're confused. They were expecting this epic moment. They were expecting a stallion, a big horse, and a show of force and power. And yet Jesus picks and tells them, go get me a donkey. They're not quite sure. They're confused. And really what we're going to see is their lack of understanding what Jesus is doing is going to lead them to worry. This is just the first of many things that they will not understand. As Jesus steps into this final week, he's going to be telling them things that they do not understand and things that do not line up with their expectations of who he is. So they're a little confused about the donkey, but they think, okay, well, we made it to the city. Here's the king. We're with him. So here we go. It's time to take over. And the first thing Jesus does is he gathers them together and he gets down and he picks up a towel and he washes their feet. It's not what you would expect if this is the king. He's the authority. And here he is. He's not carrying a crown, but he's carrying a towel. Chapter 13, verse 6, here's what it says, that Simon Peter said to Jesus, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Again, he's confused. Why are you, the king of all kings, on the ground washing my dirty feet? Later on, Jesus says this. Jesus said to them, very truly I tell you, one of you is going to betray me. His disciples stared at one another at a loss to know which of them he meant. Okay, what? You've got a towel and you're riding a donkey and one of us is going to betray you? Us? We've been walking with you for years. What do you mean? They're confused. And then lastly, John 13:33, Jesus said to them, my children, I will be with you only a little longer. Goes on 36, Simon Peter asked him, Lord, where are you going? They're so confused. You're leaving? We just got here. You're supposed to overthrow the government. You're supposed to be the king who sits on the throne, and you're leaving? Where are you going? Nothing is making sense to them. We're going to see that it's going to lead to worry. So here's what I want you to know. When life isn't making sense, worry fills in the blanks. When you don't understand what's happening and there's this divide, this gap between what you think and what you really know, worry will always try to fill in those blanks. The disciples aren't getting the version of Jesus they expected. He's on a donkey. He's carrying a towel. He's going to carry a cross, and eventually he's going to die. They're confused. And in that place, worry grows. And Jesus knows this is why he's going to speak directly to their worry. You may not be experiencing the life that you expected. You may not be in the place that you were hoping you would be. As you think about your life, your plans, where you expected yourself to be, you may not be in that place. And in that divide, in that gap, you may be experiencing some worry. You may be thinking, by now, I expect it to be further in my career. And I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels and I'm wasting my time. Why? I mean, if I expected by now that I would be married, I'd have somebody, maybe I'd have kids, maybe we'd have a family, but here I am. Why? And worry starts to grow. You start to think it's about you or something else. Maybe you think, I expected by now that I would feel some sort of peace in regards to my finances. I thought if I got that job, got that promotion, if we made that sell or moved to this place, and suddenly I would feel better, and I don't. It's in that divide that worry grows, because worry loves unanswered questions, because they will answer them for you. And you don't have the answer. Worry's going to try to tell you, oh, this is why. It's because of you. Or you're never going to make it there. You'll never achieve those things. You should just give up. Worry loves to answer the questions for you. You don't know what tomorrow holds. You don't know what other people are thinking. You don't know the other things that are taking place. And because of that, worry grows in all of these areas of our life. So I want you this morning just to begin to think personally about yourself. What area of your life do you feel like you have unanswered questions? What area of your life do you wish, like you feel and wish that you had more information, that you had better understanding? And because you don't currently, it's leading you to worry. I want you to think about it. What is it for you? What has your mind been filling in the blanks with fear? What parts of your life? And I want you to know that as the disciples, those closest to Jesus, those who have been walking with him longest, begin to worry, Jesus is not surprised. And he's not surprised by your worry. He's not surprised by it. Whatever it is you feel as you lay your head down to rest, as their mind begins and continues to raise, he's not surprised. And I want us to see that he's going to speak directly to them and to us this morning. So here's what Jesus does for them and to us. Jesus gives us something to hold on to in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the storms of worry. Jesus is looking at his disciples. He knows that chaos is coming. It's on the horizon. He knows it's headed their way. They're going to be confused. Their fear is going to spike. So he starts telling them what they need to remember. He's telling them something they don't understand, and then he's going to turn around and tell them something they need to cling to in the midst of it. Here's just a few of them. John 14:1, Jesus told them, "Let not your hearts be troubled." Why does he have to tell them that? Because their hearts are going to be troubled. Verse 18, he tells them, "I will not leave you as orphans." Yes, I am leaving, and it's not what you're expecting, but I'm not leaving you alone. Verse 27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." It's going to feel like nothing is making sense. You're going to be so confused, but I'm promising you peace. Chapter 16, verse 33, Jesus told them this, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Jesus knew that in this world you would have trouble. And these words he's speaking to his disciples, but he's also saying them to you and to me. Take heart. This is not the end of the story. I am overcoming and have overcome the world. And what I love about this is Jesus is not pretending like things are just going to be okay. It's not so bad. Just look on the bright side of things. That's not what he's telling them. I always picture it like this, that Jesus is standing with them and he sees the future and he knows what's coming. There's a storm on its way. Everything's going to change. They're going to be confused. They're going to scatter. They're going to be afraid for their lives. And he sees the storm coming and he does not tell them, here's what to do to go around it. He simply looks at them and says, hey, when the storm comes, because you're going to go through it, here's what I want you to do. When you are in the midst of the storm of worry and not understanding, here's what I want you to hold on to. These truths and these promises. So I want you to see the disciples wanted a plan, but Jesus gave them a promise. The disciples are essentially, what are you saying? Tell me more. I don't understand how this is going to work. I don't understand how this is going to play out. We understand the same thing. Okay, Jesus, this is happening, but what comes next? Jesus, I thought I was going this direction and suddenly this part of my life fell apart or this thing happened. So now what? Jesus, give me the instructions, right? Give me the directions. Tell me where to go next. And so often we don't feel like we get that. Jesus does not give them instructions to go around the pain. He says, when it comes, here's what you need to hold on to. He's not speaking to their hands or their feet. He's speaking to their hearts and their minds. You're going to be worried. You're going to be confused. Do not forget this. And maybe you need to hear this morning. It is not a sin to feel worry. And it is not a sin to feel anxiety when it comes. It's not. But we should understand what those things should do and what they should lead us to do. When we feel worry or anxiety or something in our life makes us feel those emotions, they should be an alarm bell going off. They should really serve as indicators for us of, man, I am so stressed about this thing. I need to do something with it. And so often we don't. So often we just think, man, I don't know how this is going to work. Here's what I'm really hoping happens. Here's what I don't understand. And instead, we just look at it. We dwell on it. we focus on it. And when we do that and we just let it continue to spiral, it only grows in our life and in our hearts. Jesus wants us to, when we feel these emotions and it gets our attention, that it should be a reminder, what are you doing with it? Are you keeping it, or are you trying to give it to Jesus to handle? Jesus is speaking to their hearts because he knows that the chaos and the storm will not be around them, it will be inside of them. Look at what God reminds us of in the New Testament. The Apostle Paul told us in the 2 Corinthians, he said this, take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. To take captive every thought that goes through your mind to make it obedient to Christ. Proverbs 4:23 tells us this, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. These are powerful reminders. I've heard it said this way before. Be careful what you think, because your thoughts run your life. Your mind is incredibly powerful. The things that come and run through it are important. And what we allow our minds to dwell on affects our life immensely. This is why God is reminding us to take captive of your thoughts, because you and I know that when we don't, they run. Think about where your mind went this week. Your worries, but also other things. What you began to focus on and where it led you to. That's why God is telling us to take captive our thoughts and to guard our hearts, because what we allow ourselves to dwell on, what we allow ourselves to think about, will lead our lives those directions. Our life will turn towards and move in the direction of our strongest thoughts. So here's what we should know. Every worry that you feel will either pull you closer to God or push you further from Him. Every worry is going to either grow or lead you to hand it to God. And you know what both of those probably feel like. But every worry is a reminder. This is big, this is heavy, this is scary. What are you going to do with it? When we don't deal with these things, it leads us to spiral. In my house, we call them spiraling worries. Maybe you understand that, but real life examples, you're driving your car and it makes a weird noise and you're like, what was that? And you start to think, well, I hope it's nothing big or major. And what if it needs serious repairs? And what if I can't afford those repairs? And what if they cost this much? And what if I'm without a vehicle? What if I'm without a job? And suddenly you are worried and in a place where your car's just making weird noises. You start to think, the economy is slowing, or the price of oil is going up. And, well, if that continues in that direction, then it affects our business. And if our business is affected, then maybe it affects my job. And you end up in the same place where suddenly you're worried and you think, I'm going to be without a job and layoffs are coming. I want you to know that there's a million of those examples in our lives and in your life. Those are very real problems, worthy of your time and your attention. Please don't ignore the noise that your car is making. But should it lead you to that place? No. It should get your attention. It should tell you something needs to be done with this. But instead of feeding your worry and allowing it to grow, there's a difference between feeling worry and feeding it. So what are you going to do? Feed this thing, or to take that burden, take that worry to God. God, this is scary. God, I don't know how to carry this. God, I don't know how to navigate this. Jesus, you promised me peace. Here go my problems. Every worry will either push you closer to Him or further from Him. And Jesus, what He promised you to hold on to was peace. And here's what I want you to know. The peace that Jesus is talking about in this world, peace comes from presence and not from circumstances. Peace comes from presence and being near to Jesus and not perfect circumstances. Jesus would go on to tell them this as He was telling them that He was leaving. John 16, verse 7. Jesus said, it is to your advantage that I go away. That is one of the most confusing things Jesus ever said. like the king, we're with him and we're here, and now it's time to rule and reign with you. And he's like, hey, by the way, I'm leaving. And they're, what? And it is better for you that I leave. What? What could be better than walking beside Jesus? Jesus is making them a promise that my spirit will be with you. When I leave, my spirit will come and he will be with you. What Jesus is talking about in that moment, he's talking about the third person of the Trinity. There's the Father, the Son, and then there's the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit has always existed. He's present at creation at the very beginning. And all throughout God's story, the Holy Spirit shows up to help. But what's interesting is you read and you see these moments in the Old Testament, in God's story, the Holy Spirit will show up and he will help rescue people out of slavery in Egypt. He'll show up and give people supernatural ability to do different things and to give them peace and strength and all of these things. But every single time after he helps, he leaves. But he's present all throughout God's story. And what Jesus is saying here is he's saying, when I leave, my spirit is going to come and he's going to be with you. And he's not just going to be with you for a moment, he's going to dwell inside of you. He's here to stay. What could be better than having Jesus beside us? Jesus saying is to have God within you. Look at what he said in verse 13. And he, the Holy Spirit, will guide you into all truth. He's coming to guide you. He's coming to be with you through everything that you encounter. He's coming to walk with you through whatever it is that you face, and you will not face any of it alone. You may not understand it. You may wish you knew more, but you will not be alone. Really a beautiful promise, because Jesus is saying, here comes the storm. And he's saying, do not forget these things, these promises, but he's also saying, don't forget, I am with you through it all. You're not alone. You're never alone. And what this means is the peace that you want, the peace that you are seeking, the peace that Jesus is referring to in this life is not the absence of problems. That's not the peace he's talking about. It's the presence of God in whatever it is that you're walking through. And that's not always what we picture. When you picture peace, man, I just can't wait till that day in this life. Man, whatever it is you think of, for me, and I think for many of us, it's a day where everything goes right. A week where nothing falls apart. You're not surprised by anything. Everyone does what they're supposed to do and all the things work correctly. That's often what we picture when we think of peace. You know, years ago, there's a season in our family's life where Emily began her teaching career. And everyone was at home, our kids, and one day Emily began to teach at a junior high. At the same time, one of our daughters went to kindergarten and the other one went to preschool. And so we went from no one in school to overnight 3 people in our family in 3 different schools. And as you can imagine, they brought home every single disease imaginable. We were insanely sick all the time. For like 6 months, it felt like I missed so much work as I was just sick myself or home with our kids. And I remember just, this was a constant thing. Something would run through our house and then the last person would finally get over it and something new would show up. And I felt like we couldn't get all of us healthy at the same time. And I remember we put together like a 2-week stretch where we were all where we needed to be. Everyone was healthy. And someone at our church mentioned it to us. Hey, you guys have been pretty healthy. What is that, 2 weeks now? And I remember just thinking, shh, we don't talk about it. It's like when a pitcher is throwing a perfect game, you don't talk to them about it. It was like the Castillo family is throwing a perfect game right now. Don't mention it. That idea, I can't get everyone healthy at the same time. I think many of you can relate to that in your life, in the areas of your life. You feel like if something goes right, then something over here is going to break. If you finally can get this thing under control, then there's something else over here that's just going to happen to go off the rails, or it's going to lead you to worry. And we think, and I'm guilty of this as well, of picturing peace is a day where all of those things are working well. Just give me one day, God, where everything goes right. one week can I get to a place where everything is just humming along and then I will feel peace. That is not what Jesus is talking about. It is not perfect circumstances. It is his presence with you. It is miraculous. It is a miracle. It does not make sense. Peace that surpasses understanding in the midst of a storm. So I want you to think this morning, what have you been hoping for that you think will finally give you peace? It's in the future. It's something you're praying for. You're hoping will just work out. And you think, if I can just get there, if I can just figure that out, then finally my heart will feel peace. If you can get that relationship worked out, if the test comes back clear, if the season you're in just gets a little easier, if you have enough money, if you're free from debt, I want you to think about, what are you hoping for in your heart, that if I can just get to that place, then I will feel peace. Peace is not found in circumstances. The world that we live in chases that. We can just get there, get that, have enough, then we will get peace. And it does not work. Peace is a person, and peace is God's presence with us in the midst of whatever it is we walk through. I learned this the hard way. In this process of planting and starting this church, I have learned I am still worried today about plenty of things. And as I think about the things that I'm worried about today, I look back and realize that the things I'm worried about today that I'm having to navigate and the problems I'm having to work through are literally answers to prayers I had years ago. And when we started this journey of this church, I would always think, God, if we could just reach that milestone, God, if we could just have this many people in our living room, God, if we can just raise this much money for this equipment, God, if we can just get into this building, and if we can meet in the school, then all our problems will be solved and I won't have anything else to worry about. Here we are. I'm worried about the lights this morning. Peace is not circumstances. Peace is God's presence in the midst of it. So many of the things I worry about today are answers to prayers. And maybe you are in the midst of things that you ask God for, that you were hoping to have, and now they lead you to worry. I want you just to be reminded, God's presence, if you're a follower of Jesus, is with you. He's promised to guide you, to help you, to steady you, and to grant you peace that surpasses understanding. If you take these worries and you don't carry them yourself, but you hand them to him. You don't need to understand everything or have everything under control to have peace. You just have to trust the one who's in control and who does understand what you do not. I wanted to share with you one of my most read verses in my entire Bible, the thing that I continue to run back to, underline and circle, and it's this. It's in this moment of Jesus' story. Chapter 13, verse 7, Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." This is a beautiful promise that I run to often because I understand. I do not understand, Jesus, what you are doing. I'm going to cling to the promise that you do, and one day I will. And maybe for you, that's important for you just to be reminded that in the midst of your not knowing, your worry, your anxiety, your not understanding, Jesus isn't surprised. He's not angry. He's not disappointed. He's just telling you to trust him because he's with you. So if you're in a season right now where life isn't making sense, maybe you're trying to trust God and it doesn't make sense and things aren't going the way you hoped for. Maybe your future, your health, your finances, whatever it is, I want you just to think, what have you been trying to carry that doesn't belong to you? It belongs to him. What's been on your shoulders that shouldn't be there? It's worthy of your time and your attention, but it is not your problem. It's God. Handing it over to him and being honest about it. Naming it to him. Saying, God, this is heavy and I can't do it. I need your help. So this morning, I just want to invite you to do that. So here's what I'd love to do as we just wrap this up. I'd love for you just to bow your head and close your eyes, and I'd love to lead you to pray. There are many things in your life or on your shoulders that you are carrying. There are plenty of worries that are in front of you that are only growing, and they lead and control your thoughts and lead you to places of despair. Today, I want to lead you to give those to God. And what that means, it means that you're just honest with Him about what it is you're feeling. It means you name it before Him. That you tell Him, God, this is heavy. I need you to carry it. It means releasing your grip and saying, God, I do not understand, but I trust you. So here's what I want you to do. I'd love to lead you just to open your hands, palms up, wherever you are. I want to give you a few moments, and I'd love for you just to, in your own head, silently, I want you just to begin to name the things to God that are burdens. I want you to begin to name the things that are worries that you have been carrying and that are only growing. Would you just take a moment and begin to tell Him? Name them and tell them that you cannot do it. Next, I just want you just to be honest with God. After naming those things, I just want you to have a moment where you say, God, I give these to you. Help me to trust your plan. As Jesus described, you do not understand what He's doing, but ask Him, God, help me to trust you. So just take the next few moments and just tell Him, God, I give these to you. Help me to trust you with my circumstances, with my family, with my life, with my finances, with my future, with my heart, whatever it may be. Lord, this world is full of worry because we don't understand everything, and it's a broken world. God, I pray that you would speak to each of us today and remind us of what is true. We will not always understand, and this world will not always make sense. But God, remind us of what is true, that you are with us in it. So God, I pray for every person here that you would grant us peace that surpasses understanding. Remind us that your Spirit is with us and we are not alone, and He will guide us and lead us and strengthen us in the midst of the storm. And God, these problems in front of us that we're holding on to, Lord, help us to give them to you and remind us that these are problems, but they're God's problems. So Lord, help us to release our hold on them, help us to hand them to you, and help us to walk forward in confidence, knowing that you are with us through whatever comes next. Lord, we love you. Thank you for this reminder. Pray this in Jesus' name.